I'm Janice Edwards. Coming up on Signature Silicon Valley, we're talking with San Jose mayoral candidates, City Councilman Sam Liccardo and Supervisor Dave Cortese. They're bringing their favorite Italian dishes, and we'll get to sample them. Then the Alzheimer's Association has a preview of their upcoming walk. And students who taught in India as part of the Home of Hope English Empowerment Program join us. That's coming up next. I'm Janice Edwards. Welcome to Signature Silicon Valley. As I mentioned for the tease of our show, today we invited both mayoral candidates of San Jose to join us, and because they share Italian heritage, we asked them to bring their favorite Italian dish. We are doing our interviews in alphabetical order. Supervisor Dave Cortese, mayoral candidate for San Jose, is with us. Welcome back. Nice to have you with us again.
Hi, Janice. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, and thank you for bringing something that is filling our studio with such a delicious aroma. Tell us about these stuffed baked artichokes, Grandma Rose Cortese style.
Well, you know, my grandma passed away years ago, but she used to make these all the time. And as a kid and a young man, you know, it was a great delight to come to a family holiday party and walk in and see these on the stovetop.
Yes.
I knew it was going to be a good day, but later, nobody knew how to make them. You know, the recipe was lost, was never written down. She just made them, you know. And she was a first-generation immigrant from Sicily, as was my paternal grandfather. So I started experimenting, trying to figure out how to reconstruct, you know, what I knew. It was almost like trying to play music by ear, because I knew what they were like, you know.
And what they tasted like, that right taste.
Right. So after several false starts, I finally came up with the recipe, and then quickly shared it with other members of the family to make sure I had done it, you know. And everybody said, you nailed it, this is it. So basically, there, you know, you just, it's not really too complicated. Start with artichokes, obviously, top them, take the spurs off them, cut the stems off like most people do if they're preparing artichokes. But here, these aren't boiled or steamed, these are actually baked.
I see. Yeah.
And the thing that makes them special is what you stuff them with. And that was the hard part, trying to figure out how to do that, and then also how to figure out how to bake them and still make them come out tender. And what you do is, and this recipe just calls for breadcrumbs. You know, in days before, people made their own breadcrumbs, right? Stale bread became breadcrumbs, and then you had to put plenty of salt and seasoning and everything. Here, you would use salt and pepper, of course, also garlic, and parsley. And you know, I brought the whole recipe with me, even
we'll put it on the website.
Even a little bit of cheese. I use Romano cheese usually, but Parmesan or Romano. And the preparation technique is you put them in a baking dish, but you need to put about an inch of boiling water on the bottom before you put them in the oven. 375 degrees for 45 minutes, covered in foil. And what happens is that boiling water keeps boiling, keeps simmering, and it cooks the hearts, while meanwhile the tops stay dry and bake, and you get this real toasted type of effect on the breadcrumbs and the top of the artichoke. Yet when you pull a leaf out, it's still tender at the heart.
Wow. So. At the end of the segment, we're going to try it. We won't do it now because we'll have artichoke in our teeth, but it's delicious. So tell me about your family. How many members were there? How many siblings?
Well, my grandparents on the Cortese side, as I said, you know, we're here from Sicily almost 100 years ago. My grandfather came here by himself, penniless as a teenager, and almost kind of a typical immigrant story, maybe except for the part that he came by himself. That was a little rare. But he had 5 children, my father being one of them, 1 daughter, and the rest were boys, and then 16 grandchildren. And I wasn't the oldest grandchild, but I was near the upper age, and I got to spend a lot of time with my grandparents. In fact, for large segments of my life, I actually lived there because we were in the farming business, and that was what you did. If I needed to be involved in the farming operation where they lived in that part of town, I just stayed with them for 2 or 3 months at a time. So I really got a chance not only to appreciate her cooking and recipes, but also to pick up a few ideas on how to do it.
Right. What led you into politics?
Well, politics was something that started with just a deep caring for the community. When I was 10 years old, I wrote my first letter to my congressman, who was Congressman Don Edwards at the time. He later became very, very well known in this area.
Yes.
That was 1966, and it was because I had some concerns about a migrant farm family that was settling in with us, and the oldest son had been killed on the front lines of the Vietnam War, and it bothered me, and I kept trying to talk to people about it, and finally adults started to tell me, just write a letter to your congressman if you're unhappy, and I did. And he wrote a letter back to me about 3 weeks later, and I think it really changed my life because he took the time in that letter to walk me through my concerns, his responses, and I realized that politics and public service really can be a noble vocation. It can be about helping people, even 10-year-old kids that live on prune orchards, out in East San Jose.
Yes.
Later, I was a business person.
Right.
Took over my family's real estate business, and I decided to try to take that business experience into elected office, and I served on the Eastside High School Board, as you know, for 8 years, City Council for 8 years, and now the Board of Supervisors for 5.5 years.
And now, mayoral hopeful candidate for mayor. How do you think this mayoral race has changed you, if it has in any way?
Well, this is my 9th election over 22 years, and it's in a lot of ways it's been the most enjoyable. It's been the most
enjoyable campaign.
Most enjoyable campaign. It's really the most energized I've felt in a campaign. Lots and lots of people engaged in this race on both sides, but it makes a difference when you're surrounded by people that are all pushing in the same direction. And of course, public safety has been just a huge issue in this campaign. And
yes, how will you deal with that in terms of making the city safer if you're elected?
Well, I've published a 3-point plan, and in essence, it's to bolster up neighborhood patrols. People are not getting responses when it comes to theft crimes from the police department. In the 5.5 years since I left the city council, we're down about 450 police officers, and they're resigning. They've been quitting at a rate of about 70 per year. So the plan is to immediately engage the employee unions, especially the police officers union, sit them down, figure out what it's going to take to immediately stop the resignations so we don't lose any more, and then fill up the academies. We have academies that can hold up to 60 new cadets a year, and we can run 3 of those per year. And there's 140 positions funded in Mayor Reed's budget right now. So we need to fill those academies, get those guys on the payroll, but I think it's going to take restoring the trust right now. There's been a lot of
there has been.
A lot of infighting going on.
I want to thank you so much, and in the interest of fairness, we're doing the exact same amount of time for both of you. So thank you so much for bringing this delicious dish, for sharing more about your background with us. And we want to let people know that if you'd like to contact Supervisor Dave Cortese, mayoral candidate for San Jose, the details are on our screen. And as we mentioned also, we will have the recipe on our website. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we invited both mayoral candidates for San Jose to join us today with their favorite Italian dish. City Councilman Sam Liccardo is here, and he's brought Cioppino. So welcome to you.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm almost as happy as the Cioppino.
Yes, and it smells wonderful.
Yes.
Everyone in the studio is just savoring the smell of it. I wanted to have an opportunity to talk with you in a more personal way, just about your life and what led you into politics, and also this recipe in your family. So since it's before us and we started with that, talk to me a little bit about Cioppino, why you like it, and who made it at home.
Right. So crab Cioppino is a traditional Sicilian dish, although it's enjoyed elsewhere in Italy. It's often enjoyed on Christmas Eve. So it's a big family meal. This is something you make a big deal about. And Cioppino is really just a collection of fish and in a rich tomato sauce with with a lot of spices, a lot of garlic. And for the most part, it's about whatever anybody brings to the kitchen that day. Usually, different uncles and aunts and cousins would bring, their favorite shrimp or crab or whatever it was, and it all gets thrown into the same pot. And the family enjoys whatever's there. My mom made it for us since I was a little kid. It was always a favorite of mine. My mom is not Italian, by the way. She's Irish and Mexican and lots of other nationalities. But she decided she couldn't stand Irish food, and so she learned how to cook Italian from my paternal grandmother.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so how big was your family? How many siblings?
So I was one of 5 kids, and still am. Okay. And so my job as the youngest of the 5 was to stay out of the way. So while the cooking was being done, I stayed out of the way, and then usually the youngest 2 or 3 of us, of all the kids and cousins, would be stuck with KP, and we'd do the cleanup.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a small price to pay for enjoying Cioppino, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. So what was it that led you into politics?
You know, I was always passionate about whatever was going on in the news. I was one of those odd 8-year-old kids who would sit and watch television with my folks and watch the nightly news and read Newsweek and get really engaged in that. And I'll never forget, you know, when I first got my letter of acceptance to law school, I remember going over to my grandfather's house, and he lived over on North 5th Street for about 60 years. And I remember running over there to tell him about it, because he'd only had an 8th grade education. He was very proud that his kids and grandkids would go on to college. That was something that was very exciting to him. And so I went over and showed him my letter of acceptance. I was expecting him to shower me with praise. And so I told him about it. I said, "Grandpa, check it out. I got into Harvard. I'm going off." And he didn't say anything to me. And so I had to tell him 2 or 3 times, "Hey, Grandpa, check it out. I'm going to Harvard Law School. Isn't that great?" And eventually he just interrupts me and says, "Sam, whatever you do, don't be one of them." I was a little disappointed, so I asked him what he meant by that. Right. And he said, "You know, Sam, you need to understand, lots of folks go to schools like that and they think it's all about them. That they worked harder than everybody else, they deserve it, they're smarter than everybody else. But you know better than that. You know you had that opportunity because you had a grandmother that got up at 4 in the morning to get a store ready, and you had a father who worked 2 jobs to get through college, and you had teachers who worked really hard to give you that opportunity." So he said, "You know, you go to schools like that, you better remember it's not about you. And when you graduate from school like that, you better remember it's about something greater in yourself." Yes. And that was a powerful lesson, and it was certainly a lesson I took to heart, and ultimately something that sort of drove me into public service.
Yes, I remember getting a talk like that from my dad when I was accepted to Harvard undergrad, so I know it's very important in that way. In public service now, how do you feel this mayoral campaign has changed you, if it has in any way?
You know, we've had a great opportunity to get out and really explore parts of the city that I honestly had never even seen before. This is an enormous city. And it doesn't matter how long you serve here, how long you work here, you cannot possibly see it all unless you are deliberate in doing so. And I've had the benefit now of being in 160 homes throughout the city for gatherings, to be able to meet neighbors and talk. And what is inspiring to me is how passionate people are about wanting to improve the city, how much they care about this community. It doesn't matter how skeptical they are about politics, how jaded they might feel about it. They're still passionate about the issue of what it's going to take to make their park a little more welcoming for kids, what it's going to take to help the senior citizen who lives next door feel a little safer. You know, whatever it is, people are passionate about it in this city, and it's very inspiring to me.
Let's talk about safety and crime.
Yeah.
So what will you do if you're elected mayor to make a difference in that area?
Yeah, you know, I think we all agree we need more police officers, and certainly we lost, some 400 officers since the Great Recession, and about 80% of those officers left really because we had no money. We had to lay officers off. We had hiring freezes. It was a brutally difficult time, I can remember, throughout that recession and thereafter. And so I really focused in the last year and a half in identifying the funding we would need to start to rehire officers more aggressively and restore pay to keep them on board. And so I put a plan together with Mayor Reed about 10 months ago. We identified about $35 million in savings. So we've added a 3rd police academy. We restored pay through agreement with the union, about 11%. So that's helping folks stay on board at a greater rate than they were a year ago. And in the meantime, obviously it's going to take a lot of time to add all those officers back. And so we've got to focus on how we can be more effective and efficient with the officers we have. And so I've had a whole set of proposals around utilizing technologies, from data analytics to crowdsourcing video cameras, all kinds of things we can do to help our officers be more effective while they're out there.
Yes. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us for this time. Thank you for bringing the Cioppino. We'll have the recipe on our website as well, so you can find out all the secret ingredients that the Liccardo family puts into it to make it so delicious. And if you'd like to contact City Councilman Sam Liccardo, mayoral candidate Sam Liccardo, the details are on our screen. On October 11th, the Alzheimer's Association of Northern California and Northern Nevada chapter will hold a walk in Silicon Valley. Edie Yao is the Director of Diversity and Inclusion. She joins us now. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Janice.
A lot of people hear the word Alzheimer's, and understandably, it strikes terror in their hearts, the fear that they or a loved one might suffer from the disease. But the association is really dedicated to helping people learn to live and be as proactive as possible once the diagnosis is made, and even before that time. Tell me a little bit about the services that you provide.
Sure. Well, the Alzheimer's Association, we're a national organization, and so we have 50-something chapters throughout the country. We have everything from raising awareness about Alzheimer's. We do lots of educational presentations out in the community. And I think the most important program we offer is our 24/7 helpline. So people can call us anytime, 24 hours, 7 days a week. They can call us on Christmas Day, New Year's Day, 3 in the morning, and they'll get a live person to talk to. And I hear so many family members who've used it say how helpful that was, because they were in tears, they didn't know what to do, and to have someone who knows and understands on the other end, very helpful.
Yes, because this time of the year, we're in October and we're looking toward the holidays, and that's when sometimes during a visit, a child of an adult parent may discover that they're burned pots, or the house is not in order, or maybe there have been phone calls and something's amiss, and they start to realize that they're going to have to take some action. Let's talk about the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yeah, absolutely. So dementia is this global term we use to describe the symptoms. So when someone notices that their mom is forgetful, having trouble communicating, you ask someone, what did you have for breakfast? And it was 20 minutes ago, and the person doesn't remember. That's a sign of more dementia than it would be normal aging.
And mood swings.
Mood swings and behavior changes, getting lost in your own neighborhood. Those are all symptoms that we describe as dementia. Alzheimer's is the #1 cause of dementia, so there are many different types of dementia. It's almost like there are different types of cancers, there are different types of dementias.
Yes. So when someone makes that call and they get some information that is helpful, what are usually the next steps for really taking care of the person as well as the family members who will become caregivers?
Sure. Well, the first thing we always recommend is that they get a diagnosis. There might be online tests that people can take, but the best way to know what's going on is to see your physician. So typically you'd go to your general practitioner, and they might do a brief dementia screening and then refer you to a neurologist or someone who's an expert on the brain. So getting a diagnosis is really critical. And the reason why that's important is then so the family knows what they're dealing with and they can plan ahead. And that's really the important part, is planning. How will we take care of mom? How will we make sure that she can live independently for as long as possible?
Yeah, so many questions for mom or dad, or sometimes
or
these
dad,
days you hear a lot about early
Spouse.
stage Alzheimer's too, and for spouses it can be especially devastating to lose the partner they've had all their lives in a certain way, and things shift. At the walks, what do you hope people experience and take away from being there?
Our walk is probably our biggest event, and it is not only to raise funds for the Alzheimer's Association. We're the largest nonprofit voluntary health organization that funds Alzheimer's research outside of the federal government, but it's also a day to really raise awareness, because as you said, people are still so afraid to talk about Alzheimer's, and to get 3,000 plus people together in one place is powerful, to see I'm not alone. there are all these other people who care about this condition.
Yes, and I think it's wonderful too to have caregivers get information, because many times caregivers become ill in the dedication to a loved one. So having the services that can prepare everyone for what to expect really makes a huge difference. You've worked at the association for 14 years. What do you find personally rewarding about it?
You know, I think what's rewarding is just that we're making progress, really. I mean, it's unfortunate that every year I have to say we don't have a cure yet for Alzheimer's. We don't have effective treatment, and yet we're making significant progress in terms of more and more people understanding what Alzheimer's is, and we're helping more and more people. So we've, as an organization, we've elevated the amount of money that the federal government is putting into Alzheimer's research. We are seeing significant changes and progress in Alzheimer's research itself, the way we can identify it, even in living brains, to see the plaques and tangles is progress. And our work isn't done. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Also preventive measures. While there are certain genetic factors as well as environmental, there are also some actions that people can take to boost their memory and perhaps extend their brain life.
Sure. There is no guaranteed way to prevent Alzheimer's, but there are, in fact, ways you can reduce your risk, and those are lifestyle factors, as you mentioned. Keeping your mind active, working, volunteering, you know, doing things that are novel and different for you makes a difference.
Even crossword puzzles, Lumosity brain
Even
games, all
crossword
those.
puzzles, or learning a new language, or, you know, doing things that are different for you. And really, and eating a healthy diet, so healthy heart equals a healthy brain. And the most important thing is exercise. That is by far the biggest thing people can do to boost their brain power.
Yes, great. Well, thank you so much for the important work that you're doing and the services that you provide. And again, we invite you to come out for the walk in October, and the details about that are on our screen. When Home of Hope was featured on Signature Silicon Valley previously, I said I wanted some of the students who are part of the English Empowerment Program to come back and talk with us. Well, today we have them with us. Also joining us, we have Madhvi Pratt, who is the chairman of the English Empowerment Program for Home of Hope. We have Saloni Methi and also Gurbaz Singh. So welcome to you all. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's our pleasure. So Madhvi, explain a little bit about how the program works.
This program is actually a very, very unique offering, and what we're doing actually is taking kids, right from the ages of 14 all the way up to 18, taking them to India to work in one of our projects, Home of Hope supported projects. But it's unique in the sense that the kids actually get to teach the children that are destitute or orphaned, and who are not exposed to this kind of teaching that we do. Kids are helping kids, and they're teaching English in a very unique way via sports, like soccer that Gurbaz taught, via dance like Saloni taught. We're using arts and crafts to teach them English. We're using music, songs to teach them English. So it's all about positive reinforcement. It's all about getting away from the traditional method of teaching and using game-based learning principles. And actually, kids are helping kids learn. So we saw that it was a really different way of doing it, and the kids get to design their own curriculum. I mean, they get to use the games that I put together for them in this book, but they got really creative, and they created their own games and connected with the children in India. And the kids learned. In 2 weeks, they learned so much that we were completely, blown away.
Right, even though you know that this program works
Yes.
because you designed it.
Yes.
Gurbaz, how did you teach English through soccer?
Well, what I would do was I would explain them through Hindi so they can understand what I was saying. And then for soccer, I had to teach them the basics. The basics were that I had to teach them the terms of soccer, what to say, how to, what you said to someone if you wanted the ball, and basically just teach them, get them excited about the game, because they had never seen a soccer game. They don't even know what that really was. So they had to start from scratch, and I had to explain everything to them. But after that, they picked up really quickly, and they enjoyed it so much.
What did you learn from them while you were there?
I learned that so like we take everything in America for granted. You know, we take that, you know, all these opportunities that we have are because we deserve them. But these kids don't have any of that. And I learned that these kids are just fighting for opportunity to get an education, to get an opportunity to, you know, play some soccer or some sports or learn something new every day. And that's what these kids want, because most of their life is just, you know, to survive, to get food, basically to just, you know, live as long as possible. And I felt they definitely deserve an opportunity to do something more than that.
Yes, it's wonderful that Home of Hope provides that. Saloni, you taught Bollywood.
Yes, I did.
Yes, and tell me about that experience.
That was a lot of fun. So I taught them Bollywood dance, and through I was trying to teach them English basically. So I taught them the steps in English, and I tried to make them repeat what I said. And I sometimes when they didn't get it, I used to talk in Hindi and very little Hindi. So I was trying to make them speak in English.
Yes. How would you contrast culture here with what you experienced there for the students?
Culture was very different. So one thing was that we have different food. So we used to eat the same thing, and the boys and the girls here, they all mingle with one another. But then there, it's all very separated.
They're taught
boys here,
separately.
girls here. They're not taught separately. They're taught together. But boys sit with boys, girls sit with girls. And I would try to make them. So for dance, I was putting them in lines, and they wouldn't go on the same line, boys and girls. So then I was trying to make them it's okay. I'm a girl too, and you guys are standing next to me, right? Mm-hmm. So then you guys can do that too. It's okay. Right. So I was trying to teach them that.
What is that, might be in terms of culture? Why is it that way in India?
It's a very traditional culture, and there's a lot of class differences, and so that's why it's not easy for. There are lots of social taboos associated with this, and that's why the boys are kept separate from the girls. There's a lot of social pressures around that, and these children, they come from very, very poor families. I mean, these are families that make less than $2 a day. So there's so much pressure, and there's so much fear and taboo around a girl-boy relationship, so to speak, that they keep them separate. And so we have to, make them understand that, basically they don't want a friendship between a girl and a boy because they're afraid of what it can lead to because of the whole system. Right, they want
to be very careful in that way.
Yeah.
But despite those differences, it sounds like it was an incredible experience for everyone.
Yes.
That you taught a lot, you learned a lot, there's appreciation. We have these beautiful cards on the table because these are what some of the students made for you, Saloni.
Yes, they did.
Thank you.
They made it for all of us.
Oh,
yes.
For all of you, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. When you contrast how you felt when you arrived to Garbash and when you left, what do you think is the biggest difference personally?
Well, when I came to India, I felt that I didn't really know what to expect there. And when I was just thinking I was going to teach soccer, they would learn soccer and that'd be it. But when I left, I learned that these kids need someone, they weren't just looking to learn the sport, but learn from a person, from another country, from a person that knows a lot about what they're teaching. A person that can, be their friend and be their teacher at the same time. And I learned that these kids really just want to be, happy all the time, and they just want to take every opportunity they can to get better and learn something new.
Yes, and they have many hard experiences, but this brought a lot of joy. Saloni, what will you take away? What is something that you treasure about what you experienced on the trip?
I'll take away a lot from this trip. So one thing is that the kids, every day they come from hardships and everything. They come from parents that are alcoholics. They don't have a dad or something. So when they come to class, dance class, they're so happy. They don't they forget everything. They're whole different people. They're all happy. They're dancing, and I love that. I can teach them, and I can make them be happy, and I'm their friend too, so they can talk to me, and it was just amazing.
Wow,
to see that.
Clearly, it's amazing, and I want to thank you all for being here, and thank you for sharing some of the work that you do, and continued success with what you're doing with Home of Hope to make a difference and to bridge cultural gaps.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Janice, for having us on the show.
Our pleasure.
And if I could add,
if you'd like to, sorry, I apologize, we are out of time, but if you'd like to contact Home of Hope, we have details on our screen regarding that. And that's our show. I'm Janice Edwards. Thank you for putting your signature on our valley, and please join us again next time. We look forward to seeing you then.